Hi everyone, my name is Wissam, and I have participated as a contributor for the Julia organization in Google Summer of Code for last year, and also this year. I would often get questions about Google Summer of Code in general, like how to stand out, or the application process, or what is Google Summer of Code about. That I decided one time to write an article, a comprehensive and long article that details maybe most of the information that one would need to know to succeed and understand what Google Summer of Code is about. And then I felt the article is too long for people to kind of just read it in a short time, and that it would be better to make it into a video. So, this is my attempt in making a video that covers everything in the article, hopefully, even more. It just acts as a comprehensive guide along with some tips for success for Google Summer of Code. We will specifically start by talking about Google Summer of Code basics, then talk about open source just in case you don't have an idea already of what that is, the phases of Google Summer of Code, the application process, which is a particular phase. So we zoom in the application phase, and then we talk about why you should apply now that you know about the application process and how you can stand out in the application. And finally, we plan a roadmap, something you can do from now to stand out by the next season of Google Summer of Code, which is gonna be around March next year, I guess. And then some frequently asked questions. The references of any information I mention will be my own experience or the contributor guide, which you can, by the way, check out and read. It's an interesting guide, and it's hosted by Google. So any information you find here has to be completely legit. And also the mentor guide. So the mentor guide is made for mentors, so people that actually choose contributors and supervise them. They choose the contributors along with the organizations, of course. But again, it's a little hacky to be looking at the mentor guide, but well, it does give you some tips on how to stand out. So we're gonna use this as well. And let's start now with the Google Summer of Code basics. So Google Summer of Code is like an internship. In an internship, you write code for some corporation, but it's not an internship. There's one big difference first in an internship when you write code to work on whatever project. Usually it's a draft project. Usually they're just experimenting. Meanwhile, in Google Summer of Code, when you work on a project, this is going to be something actual people are going to use. It's not going to be just a draft or an experiment thing. But that's not why it's not an internship. It's not an internship because Google doesn't want to call it an internship to distinguish it from the real internships at Google, where you go work at Google. Here you work for an open source organization. And we're going to understand more of this in a little bit. The period of the Google Summer of Code program is 3 months, which is basically summertime, and it can be extended. So you can request to stay more if your project is like has more stuff than usual, or you're trying to do more stuff in the project than required, or for any other reason you can request extensions. The stipend remains the same in any case. um, there are so far, as of 2024, three types of projects in Google Summer of Code: 90-hour projects, 180-hour projects, and 350-hour projects. All of these have the full 3 month duration, but in the 350-hour one, you should be approximately working. If you divide 350 hours by 12 weeks, I think you're going to get around 30 hours. 30, I think. I'm not even sure, but which is approximately full time. We're going to see later that in reality it takes, people argue that it takes far less time, but this is the basics here. Okay. Um, I'm sorry. Well, 350 hours. So full time does, yeah, 350. No, I'm not sorry. 350 hours implies about 30 hours per week, because that means 120 hours per month, and 3 months is 360 hours. Okay. Depending on the project size that you choose and get accepted in, you may get paid seven $150 or $1,500 or $1,300, and this depends on where you are. Here, I'm assuming you're in Egypt, which is awkward, but it's because I originally made this presentation to some of my students and colleagues in Egypt. If you're living in the United States or Europe, I think you may double these numbers. It depends on the purchasing power index of the particular country. Um, I think countries that aren't that, um, how do you say that, that aren't that advanced economically will get paid these amounts, which are maybe the minimum Google can pay. If you're in a country where spending is much more often, then you may get paid even more. The Google Summer of Code program takes place every year, or I should say, it took place every year since 2005 and is still taking place, thankfully. You must be a student or an open source beginner as of, or I should say, until 2023. It was necessary to be a student, or I think until 2022 to be more precise. But then they allowed open source beginners to apply as well. Um, so if you meet either of these conditions, student means even if you're a master's student, or I guess even a PhD student, or an open source beginner. So if someone looks at your repo, they didn't see like tons of open source work, open source projects you made before. If you have that and you're not a student, then you don't qualify because you're not a beginner in open source. Um, so if you're any of these, either a student or an open source beginner, then you can apply. Okay, even if you just graduated, you're probably an open source beginner. All right, or if you're not even doing computer science as a major, you may be an open source beginner if you're just coding. It's very likely that you are. It's a two times in a life opportunity, meaning that one cannot get accepted into the program more than twice in their lifetime. If you get accepted twice, you can apply for a third time because, well, you got accepted twice. They put this maximum because, well, by the second time, you're no longer an open source beginner, right? And you're probably not in school. I mean, anyway, this is a strict rule. So after two times, regardless of whatever, you can't apply anymore. You're not employed by Google. Again, they mentioned this. You can't just because you got into Google Summer of Code tell other people or tell another company, oh yeah, I got employed by Google. So if this case for any reason happens in a court, you will be the one losing because you're gonna find like in the Google Summer of Code contract or whatever that Google says, well, you're not employed by us, okay? They are the people that operate this program. They organize it. You get the stipend from them, but you work at another open source organization, okay? Google is like the middleman. But that doesn't mean it doesn't relate in any way to employment at Google because when you get enrolled into the program, Google Summer of Code, and then you apply at Google, there is the hiring managers or the hiring personnel there in general will see like a special, I don't know, emblem or something that just kind of signifies that you participated in Google Summer of Code, and then maybe they can click on you and see the feedback of whoever was supervising you, and that can help you get employed. Google says that yeah, it can help you. So these were the basics of Google Summer of Code. What is open source? From the name, we can conclude that it is software where the source code is open for modification and redistribution. So software meaning any program, for instance, a computer program, a mobile program, your washing machine operates by a program. All these programs correspond to source code. Um, when we say that this software is open source, it means that the source code corresponding to the program, the software, is open for modification and redistribution, meaning that anyone can modify it. If the modification gets accepted by the owners of the software, of course, then it will apply, but they can choose whether to accept or not accept your modification. And it could be redistributed, so anyone can make another version of the software for their own reasons. Okay, like for instance, If Windows was open source and your name is Max, then you could see the code for Windows and then make a new version of Windows called Windows 10 Max, where you modify some features in Windows to tailor, I don't know, your taste, and then redistribute it, like make even new CDs with Windows 10 Max. Um, so the main thing you want to understand about open source is everyone has access, can see the code for sure. Modifications, if you want to modify your own copy to redistribute your own copy, that's always fine, unless there's another license that restricts this, which in that case it may be not open source, but here we're assuming there isn't. So you can always modify your own copy and then redistribute that. That's fine. If you want to modify the original copy of the software, there will be some maintainers that will have to first approve of your modifications. Okay? So this kind of summarizes everything I said. Any software corresponds to some source code. Maintainers are the ones who first wrote this source code. Usually they are the ones who wrote the source code, but they may be just any people that the company owning the software trust. They have direct access on the source code. Anyone else, as a contributor, can modify the source code. But for them to do this, what they first do is fork the software, make a copy of the source code. The source code, they're going to make a copy. They fork it. So, forking, how a fork looks like? It goes straight, then there are like two pathways. That's why it's called forking. You have your own pathway, your own copy of the software as a contributor. Then whenever you make your changes, you have two options. First, just redistribute it under a new name. You don't have to seek anyone's permission in this case. I don't picture this scenario in this diagram, but the more common scenario is you're interested in modifying the main program, in which case you request the maintainers who can access the source code to pull your changes. Could you pull my changes? I added some new features to the software. They have direct access, so they can pull your changes to the source code. So when you make that request for the maintainers to pull the changes, that's called a pull request. Okay? So again, an example of this is, think of any program, like your favorite mobile app. You're a programmer, you think this mobile app could be much, much better if it had the feature XYZ. So instead of just requesting the maintainers to build this feature, you're like, oh, I can help with this. So what you do is clone your own copy, your own fork. So clone means to copy. Get your own copy, which is also then called a fork, because the two pathways analogy I just mentioned a few seconds ago. Modify that copy and then make a pull request. Make a request for the maintainers to pull your changes. When they pull it, it will go to the source code, and the next release of the program will have the new feature you added. Okay? So this is what open source is. Closed source means this can't happen. So only the maintainers have access to the source code. They don't show it to anyone. No one can see it usually. No one except the people inside the organization or the maintainers. And you can be like, oh, I'm going to make a copy. Well, you can't see it to make a copy in the first place. Okay. So these are all examples of open source projects. Linux is like, you can make your own distro of Linux distribution operating system that is based on Linux, and you can call it anything you want. Likewise, so Mozilla Firefox, if your name is John, you can be like Mozilla John Fox and modify it in any way and redistribute it, or just add features to their own thing. Same for also the Python as a programming language. But so for instance, when I say Python, so I can just go there and maybe ask them to add a real typing system because I'm sick of the type hints that do nothing. Well, you see, this is where communication between contributors and maintainers is important. If they say no, they will never accept your pull request. So it will never go to to the code of Python. And if you make your own version of Python that does that, other people will be like, you're just copying Python. We're not gonna care. You just added your thing. Well, no, because the people organizing Python are a big organization, and they're gonna add more stuff in the future. They're gonna care more. You're just one person. So So it's important to realize that serious communication has to happen between you and the maintainers of the source code. To relay this to GitHub, maintainers of the source code have access directly to modify the repo. You make a pull request to their repository, and if it's closed source, then the repository is usually private, not public. You can't even see it. Okay. Examples for closed source products are Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram. You can like find the code for Facebook on GitHub. Same for LinkedIn or Instagram. Maybe Twitter try to make a chunk of their source code open source. But again, you may have someone like having their code as open source on GitHub, but then they accept no modifications for any reason. They're under valid reasons, of course. Um, in this case, it's open source, but not really open source. It's theoretically open source. Anyway, so these are examples of open source and closed source products. You can make a version of Facebook called Facebook Max because it's closed source and you can have access to the code. Google Summer of Code is only related to the open source organization. So many of these open source organizations are usually don't make profit. They may make profit, but usually they don't make profit, because if they made profit, it's complex when an open source organization makes profit. One can argue that it is complex. It may be not so complex because I don't know everything about how they work, but because anyone can contribute, if they make money, how do they distribute the money? Overall contributors. Many people added many features. Okay, so the more common case, as you can see, like most of these, if you're familiar with Python, is of course free. PHP is free. Red Hat, is that free? Maybe it isn't. Maybe it was free and it then became closed source. I don't know. Ruby is definitely free. GIMP is free. They are usually free. It's like the community builds something for the community. Okay, so GIMP, for instance, is an alternative to Photoshop. Uh, so so usually these companies, they don't earn profit and they want people to work on new features. But who's gonna spend time without earning money? So Google Summer of Code here is like, okay, we're gonna get this wheel running. If any of some set of if any of these open source organizations or the open source organizations in a set that we're gonna choose needs of contributors, they can apply, and if they get accepted, we're gonna pay them. So Google Summer of Code pays you to work under one of these open source organizations. Of course, many of these may not be in Google Summer of Code for any reason, and maybe some of them are is no longer open source, but you get the idea. This is the purpose of Google Summer of Code. It makes open source something that people can participate much more often in, okay? Which improves, of course, the experience for people using the software, which is also developers. So it's like developers helping other developers. We're one community. Okay, so we talked about open source. If you want to know more, I made this video. It's in the article. I can link it down. Hey. Okay, I changed laptops recently and probably it's not here, but it's on YouTube. I can link it in the description. So in this video, I remember describing the steps of like how to make a pull request on GitHub or how to make like your first contribution. Okay, I'm gonna link it. Let's move on. So the phases of Google Summer of Code, the initial phase. So we mentioned that Google Summer of Code is associated with a set of organizations that Google Summer of Code chooses, or they apply to Google Summer of Code and then they accept some of them. We're going to see how this works specifically, which is depicted in this initial phase of Google Summer of Code. First, different organizations generate ideas. So many open source organizations, they have ideas. They want some new features to be added to their tools. So they make just like a markdown file or just a document to list down these ideas. And then they assign mentors to each idea. So if me and you, if we own a company called Open Source XYZ, we may want we may want some new features in our software, like say, I don't know, the ability to write notes and the ability to record your voice. So we're gonna make a list with these new projects or new ideas which correspond to features that we want new contributors to implement, and then we're gonna look for mentors in our organization. So I'm gonna ask you, do you know someone who can supervise a student working on the notes project, the notes idea? You'd be like, yeah, Max. Max can do it because Max is also in our organization and he knows some of the tech related to implementing a notes feature. So you can supervise someone working on that. Implies like reviewing the code, assisting in various decisions during the implementation, and so on. Okay, so now the organization has a list of n ideas. For each idea, it has a mentor. It will make a page for these ideas. Oh, it will then make a page for these ideas and the mentor for each idea. Let's see an example. This is Joplin, and Joplin is a mobile app. It's a mobile app for notes, I guess. Right? It's a mobile app for notes. You can write like Markdown. You see, it's so fancy. Even you can do equations or do a diagram with while writing, which is fantastic. So this is what Joplin is. They are open source, and this was their list of ideas. So idea number one is they want seamless desktop application updates. They describe the idea here. So they say, yeah, the desktop application currently it supports automatic updates, but the process is not smooth. It's slow. It's laggy. It's sluggish. Or no, actually, it's they're just not happy that it's slow in the sense that there are more UI components or UX overhead. So you go to you have to see a modal dialog, and then you have to click on download, and then that's a very long process. So they want it to be more seamless. So you would modify the code for the application update feature to make it more seamless. They say it's medium. You say the mentor is not specified yet. That usually doesn't happen. It means, I don't know what does it mean, but it may mean that this project isn't so important, but the important factor is you can't go into a project if it doesn't have a mentor. There has to be a mentor. Let's look at another one. PDF annotations. They want a feature that allows users to add annotation support to the beta PDF viewer on desktop. So Joplin also works on desktop, and they want users to be able to add annotations. And they say it should be Apple's preview, which is the PDF viewer for Mac. Ability to draw over a PDF, blah blah blah. They say it's hard to implement, by the way, and they say who could be a mentor is this guy, and the project size is 175 hours. We talked about project sizes in the first slide, if you remember. So again, they have this whole list, which is a very long list here, 14 projects, and for each of them a mentor. Well, not all of them, of course, but you have to be skeptical about any project where you don't see a mentor. This is not usual. Okay, here it's all missing. All projects are missing mentors, but again, this is a special case. We're gonna look at another page later in this video, hopefully, and we're gonna see the normal case is there has to be a mentor for each project. Okay, so after they make this page, they submit the proposal to Google. So they write to Google, we are Joplin, or I should be general, we are open source organization XYZ, and this is our list of projects and mentors, and they would like maybe write a motivation letter or something. I don't know what do they write exactly, but they write a proposal to Google, trying to convince Google to accept them for the upcoming season. Google accepts the organization and announces the organizations that got accepted. So for 2024, this is the page that had the accepted organizations. These are all open source organizations that got accepted in 2024. You can navigate it by field. So if you're into AI, you click here, you see OpenCV. It's an awesome image processing library in Python. If you're interested in that, you go there, then you click view ideas list, you see the ideas. Then they put this vision transformer here, and then none of the projects has a vision transformer, which is so confusing. But in any case, they have mentors. So the normal case, you see a mentor, you see the description of each idea or project. So you see there are mentors, of course. This is the normal case. Okay, you If you're interested in data, you look here. Development tools, you look here and you see many big organizations like Git, for instance. That's of course well known. Kotlin is a programming language. It's of course well known. OpenVINO, so on. I particularly have worked in Julia, which is a high-level library like Python and R that is also used for scientific computing and data science in general. But it's, you can argue it's much more elegant than both. Um, you have also web, if you're interested in web development. You have Omega Up. I don't know. I think I looked there before. They were cool. Django, Chromium, big organizations. Like when you have these on your resume, it may make a difference. Wikimedia, Jitsi, that's a meeting platform. So a lot of cool open source organizations that you can find, look at the ideas, and apply to, of course, in the next season. So this is the initial phase. This is what we just finished. The next phase is the application phase. So Google announces this by a specific date. We're gonna look at the example timeline in a little bit, but the next phase is the application phase. The organizations are announced in the first phase. Now, students or open source beginners can apply to projects in these organizations. So you as a contributor would search over the organization's ideas list. You choose up to 3 projects to apply to. You communicate with the mentor of the project before applying to the project and write a proposal for it. A proposal is a single document. So, for instance, what you do, spend some time. We're gonna look into this more closely, but I'm just gonna do it randomly. So you're gonna be like, oh, honeypot project, awesome ideas, wow. ML-based web attack classification. No way. That's fantastic. That's going to be the first project I apply to. And then the second project I'm going to apply to. Show me this. Okay. Debian packaging for Debian repository. That's unreal. I'm going to take this one. So that's going to be like the second project. We're going to apply to, where is the mentor? You have to communicate with a mentor. Oh, there are 2 mentors. Anyway. And then you can choose a third project and do the same thing. Communicate with the mentor and then apply. What people usually do, or often do, is apply to 1 project. I never apply to 3 projects. We're going to talk about this just in a little bit, but I'm saying like the extreme case of what you may be doing is this. You communicate with the mentor, tell them you're interested in applying, blah, blah, blah. And then all you do is by the deadline, write a single document and propose working on this project. So talk about how you plan to approach the project, what's your design, what's your schedule, what's your background and motivation. Okay, the proposal is a single document, and usually the organization or the mentor requires it to look in a specific way, so you have to look into that. But in the most basic case, it can even be like a 1-page or a 2-page thing. In more extreme cases, it could be like 7 pages, 10 pages. There is no standard. You have to communicate with your mentor or look at the guidelines of the organization, here for instance, if they have it, to know how the proposal should be. Let's see if they have this here. Yeah, so they write some stuff on what your proposal should look like. Okay? They link to Google as well, the contributor guide of Google. Usually, organizations may override this because it's so simple. Here it's asking you to put your name and contact information, title of the project, synopsis, benefits to the community. This is so brief, and this aligns with the example I've put here. It also comes from the contributor guide. They put an example for a proposal. It's done in this much, in just this. It's like 3 pages, or something, 2 pages. I don't know. It can be too short, but I think usually it's going to be longer than this. Okay. You have to look into the organization to understand what's expected from you regarding the proposal. But this is the only thing you apply officially, or you submit officially to Google. It's the proposal. The third phase is the selection phase. So now organizations were announced. You chose 1 project or more to apply to. You wrote a proposal for each. What happens next? This is the selection phase. So the organization evaluates proposals for each project and student. So suppose they have 5 projects, and in each project 3 students applied, then in total they have 15 proposals. They're gonna evaluate each proposal in the 15. Okay. Um, so evaluation will be clear in just the third step. I'm gonna continue here. For each project they have, if they have, again, like I said, 5 project and 3 contributors applying to each, for each of the 5 projects they're gonna choose the best contributor. Okay, so each project had 3 applicants. Who was the best? Who communicated with the mentor? And so many metrics, let's not talk about these now, but who had the best proposal, and had other factors that made them best besides, aside from the proposal. So after they choose the best proposal or best student for each project, they rank them, and this is what I mean by evaluation. So if they have, again, let's look at Joplin. Joplin is a good example. Joplin had 14 projects or something, if I remember. We just had the page open a little bit some time ago, and a number of students can apply to each project. The second step in the selection phase is that they choose the best contributor for each of the 14 projects. Okay? If for a project no one applied, then it's ignored. It's as if it's not there. Okay? And then after, we're going to assume that students applied to all of them. So now they chose the best student for each of the 14 projects. They're going to rank the 14 proposals. Okay? Rank them based on what? Based on the importance of the project and based on the quality of that best proposal. Okay? So let's look at Joplin's page to make this more concrete. Hey, come on, I have to do this. Here, Joplin will be like, okay. We're gonna give this rank. So when they choose the best proposal for this project, and the best for this one, and the best proposal for this one, they will rank the students based on the importance of the project and the quality of this best proposal. They may be like, okay, the seamless desktop application, that's a very important thing. We're gonna give this rank 1, and the best proposal for this project is sufficient and fantastic. And then for PDF annotations, they may be like, okay, we're gonna give this rank 2 because the same reasons. Best student is good, and it's an important project. And then for the plugin inspector, they may be like, this is really an important project, but the best proposal here is not that sufficient for this project. So we're gonna give it rank 5 instead of 3. Then here, they may be like, oh yeah, this can have rank 3 because it's important, even if less important than the plugin inspector. The student here was very fantastic, so we're gonna give this rank 3, and so on. They're gonna give a rank to each of these, which is of course could be independent. The index may not be the rank at all. There is nothing that says that the index is the rank, but what generally holds is that they assign the rank based on the quality of the best proposal and the importance of the project. And I would argue that the importance of the project gets more weight. So here, if we think about it realistically, PDF annotations seems important. If I have Joplin on my desktop, I really want to annotate PDFs. I want to take notes. I mean, on the PDF, not on a separate paper. So this should be an important one. Seamless application updates. You're saying it's just a little slow. I think that should be so important. I mean, this would, but just thinking rationally, would likely have a higher rank if we think that the best proposals in both of these are just as good, for instance. And so on, plugin inspector doesn't seem to be that important. It's like, see how much memory and how much CPU. Okay, yeah, it's cool, but is it that important? Template insertion. Oh, that's something that can directly affect the users. So it's the general templates as notes. So someone can have an email template. Well, that seems quite important to have templates in general. Of course, they use it for emails frequently. So this could be, again, it's tricky to think about the ranking, how the organization is going to rank. You can sometimes talk to your mentor about this, but You may be just thinking now, why does it matter? You're gonna know now why does it matter uh, to apply to a project that will likely receive a high rank. It's because in the third step, after Joplin ranks the projects from 1 to 14 based on the importance of each and the quality of the best proposal, as we argued, they're gonna request from Google 14 slots. Slot you can think of as money, well, as the ability to provide money to the contributor, to be more precise. They're gonna ask Google for 14 slots, but Google is gonna provide 14 or less. So Google is not obliged, even if Joplin got accepted in the first phase, Google is not obliged to provide 14 slots. Google will be like, well, yeah, we did some evaluation on your projects or on your whatever, and then you're gonna only receive 9 slots for this season, which would imply that the best proposals in the project that received rank 10, 11, 12, 13, and 14, all of them will be rejected, although they were the best for that particular project. Okay, just because the proposal in the end received a low rank, whether because that best proposal wasn't so good or because more often because the project was not that consequential. So the K contributors got accepted. The number of slots that Google provided. If an organization has n projects going to request from Google n slots, but Google's going to provide K less than or equal to n. So the K got accepted, and then the rest gets rejected, whether it is because they are in the n minus K, they were the best in their own projects, but the project didn't even have a good enough rank, or because they were not even the best proposal for the project that they applied to, so they were out from this first step. Okay, so this is the selection case. So with this, we can derive that there are 3 conditions for rejection in Google Summer of Code. Number one, number one is very uncommon, um, or I don't know if it's so uncommon, but I heard it happen before. Uh, it's that neither you nor anyone else was a good fit for the project. So, for instance, for Joplin, AI supported categorizing and tagging. Suppose all the students that apply to this know nothing about AI. Even the best of them, well, he's a very good software engineer, but he doesn't know about AI. And here it says skills required is ML AI. Okay, so in this case, you may be rejected because you applied to this, you didn't have AI, and no one who applied to this project had AI. So this is one case of rejection. There is another case, which is I would say the most common, which is that someone else was viewed as a better fit. So person X applied to this, they had very good ML, AI, and all of these, and blah blah blah. They had made contributions in the past. Person Y also applied. They had decent ML AI, but not as good as X, so they chose X in the end, in favor of Y. Okay, so this is the second case. This is like the common case. Usually someone, this is like rare, like for no one in the applicants pool to have the skills required. Why did they all apply? This is more common. And this is the sad case. We're gonna talk about how to not fall to this, okay? How to like be the better one, hopefully, but in a little bit. The third case, what we mentioned is you may be the best person for the specific project you applied to, but the rank of your project may be less than K, and Google provided K slots. To minimize the probability of case 3, you have to try to prioritize core development projects. This was something on the mentor guide, if I remember. And instead of projects, or the contributor, I think in the mentor, I don't remember, but anyway, instead of projects that seem of less importance to the organization. So the organization, like Joplin, for example, or any organization, they may put many projects. They may put many projects while knowing that Google will not provide that much slots. But they may put them because they're just so optimistic, for instance, and they may put like very useless projects like, oh, make this feature 20% faster. Like, come on, this could be done next year, if not this year, that's fine, or even after next year. It's not that consequential. Um, so that I said a random example, but you get the idea. Some organizations, or very often, they will put projects that are not consequential. Students will apply to them because they seem easy, and then it's a trap because Google does not give a slot that um, that makes this a number of slots that make this project qualify because it didn't receive a good enough rank. You may be thinking, you may be like, okay, I got this, Isam. You said you said it's not a good idea to fall into this. How about I'm gonna apply to multiple organizations, so more than one project? There is a small catch in that. If you apply to multiple projects, to multiple organizations, and you get selected in more than one, the organization that gave you the best rank for the proposal will be the one that takes you. So if you apply project 6 at Joplin, okay, and this gets rank 3 at Joplin, and you also go to an organization that's like much bigger, say Python, and then you apply to some project and you get rank 9, and suppose Google provides Python more than 9 slots and Joplin more than 5 slots. So you were the best proposal in both projects, but because Joplin gave you a better rank in your project than Python, Joplin is who will take you. Although you would prefer Python because it's a bigger organization. So that's the catch with applying with many projects and many organizations. Smaller organizations may take you instead of bigger ones just because of that ranking problem. You get automatically selected for the highest ranking project. You have to be so for you to succeed in this. The organizations you prefer, you have to optimize very hard by applying to their most important projects. So this is my advice: if you want to apply to multiple projects, make the organizations that you really like, the ones where you optimize very hard to apply to the most important project. You can even talk to the mentors. This is really important compared to others, right? And so on. And then to other ones, apply things that are just slightly less, not much less, because you may not get accepted in the first one. Who knows? But just slightly less important, so that you still get accepted in the best organization you want. So it's I don't know why they don't give you the ability to choose which one to pursue if you get accepted in multiple ones, but this is how it works in Google's Summer of Code. So this is an example timeline for 20. This was the 2024 season. So organizations started applying from the 22nd of January 2023. Organizations had thought of ideas, they made a list, or they just apply by writing a proposal. Maybe they don't have to prepare the ideas by this time, I guess. They just write a proposal to Google. The deadline happens about 2 weeks later. Then Google informs the organizations that were accepted. It announces them as well to everyone. And at this point, of course, they have their ideas out. So by February 21st, all organizations are announced. By this time, when organizations are announced, their ideas list must be ready. In fact, for some organizations, you will find that the ideas list is ready even like before they apply to Google. They are just so optimistic. And that's good because you can like make some contributions that give you a favorable position even before the organizations are announced. And a lot of people do this, try to do this, and do this when they can. Contributors can then write proposals from March 18th, and then proposals deadline. You can no longer write a proposal, and then the organization ranks the proposals as we mentioned. Then Google allocates the slots. You see, Google allocates the slots after the organization ranks the proposals and submits them to Google. So Google doesn't tell the organization up front how many slots it's gonna get. It waits until students apply, and then after they apply, the organization ranks the proposals and then it provides the slots. Why? I don't know, but this is how it works. Um, and then the projects that were accepted, the proposals that were accepted are announced, and here actually first they're announced to organizations, and then in a day later announced to everyone, and then the program coding begins. Everyone works on their project. It's the summer until November. That's like the maximum date. Usually it's September or I think August, but if you extend it, it can at most become November. So this is the example timeline. Now let's zoom in more into the application process. What you do is first you read what the organization expects from contributors. Let's see an example. This is Octave. Of course, you know this is the MATLAB equivalent, but it's open source. They usually any organization has a page where they kind of mention what they expect from you. Like here, Octave says, "We want to get to know you before the deadline. Communicate with us." And this is a general thing, of course. All mentors, you should communicate with all of them. This will be clearer with any mentor. If the project they're mentoring is of interest to you, if you plan to apply for it, you can just be like, "I'm gonna just write a proposal and submit it to Google and expect them to accept me." We're gonna mention why just in a little bit, but here they mentioned this very basic fact. You have to communicate with them like very early. Earlier is better. I was gonna say very early, but I'm gonna just say to be more precise, earlier is better. Meaning, if they get announced here 21st, you can assume. So Octave is a big organization. It's unlikely for Google to kind of turn them down because they're big. They provide a lot of benefits to the community. I mean, people pay a lot for MATLAB. Um, and you can figure out whether the organization is going to get accepted or not by just looking at its record for the past years. If it was accepted consistently in the past years, it will likely remain to be accepted. No guarantees, but likely. So even before this time, like by even in January, you can start communicating with the mentor, with people in Octave, mentors from like mentioned in the ideas page of last year, or they may even have their ideas page out from here from January, 1 month earlier from the announcement date. Some organizations do that, but usually you have to kind of dig in Google to find it, because when they're announced, you find them in the Google Summer of Code page that we showed. Otherwise, you have to dig to find them. So you can talk about, oh, I'm interested in this project. What do you recommend me to do? You can try to make some small contributions. They mention here, they say this exactly. Make contributions. Get your hands dirty. We're curious about your programming skills. Your application will be much stronger if you can fix Octave bugs or submit patches. So make small contributions. So yeah, you're interested in a big project, which is gonna be like a new feature for Octave. Prove that you can do this by working on much simpler stuff like fixing a bug or submitting a patch. And then they have a list of short projects, yeah, that you can work on. This doesn't look short in my opinion, but anyway. Oh, I think then they have these bugs, which you can work on. Is that open? Doesn't even link me to GitHub. Like, why do you guys not use GitHub? In any case, is it open? Status, yeah, it's open. So it's still, the bug is still not solved. So you can go and fix it. So tell us what you're going to do. Do not just tell us what project you're interested in. Be specific. So I'm not gonna finish this. And this is very important. Prepare your proposal with us. So you're not gonna just write the proposal, submit it to Google. No, you're gonna like send it to the mentor first. Ask them for feedback. Then fix it based on the feedback, and then submit to Google after they're satisfied. Okay, let's continue. I mentioned that you're gonna first, the application process, in the ideal sense, you first read about what the organization expects from contributors, and we looked at the Octave example. Other organizations are expected to have a similar page. Here I summarize what you may see. The organization may recommend that you work on a pull request or finish some task or give you just some tips to shine. So they may be like, oh, you have to fix a bug, or be like Octave. They just be like, give you a tip. It would be very, very good if you fix one of our bugs. And usually that wouldn't take much time, like compared to working on the project, of course, which would take months. or finish a task. They may send you a task like, um, I don't know, write code that does this to prove that you can code well for our repo, for our project. The task may be to create a pull request to write code for something to assess your ability. So pull request to make a contribution, like fix a bug. So there are two cases. Some organizations may be like, it's better if you do this. Some organizations may be like, this is a task. You have to do this before applying. In other words, if you just submit your proposal before doing this, they will not even look at it. Okay, so it depends. But I think most organizations follow the first option. They just be like, it's better if you uh, finish a task like solving a bug. They don't make it necessary for you to apply. And in that case, usually the students that get accepted are the ones that finish the task, of course, or that do whatever tip is mentioned to shine, like fix a bug. Then, after you read about what the organization expects, you reach out to the mentor and seek advice on getting started or ask a question. Any organization has a communication channel, so they have like Slack, Microsoft Teams, Mattermost. There are many others, but they have like just a group chat platform where you can find everyone working in the organization and other contributors. Um, and if they don't, if they're so old fashioned, then they just have email, and you can like just email the mentor and be like, "Hey, I'm interested in this project. What do you think I can?" We're gonna talk about how to craft the message to your mentor in a little bit. Any organization has a communication channel, which is here, for instance, for Octave, and they have a discourse. You can here log in, sign up, then you can communicate, I guess. They should have another one which is like more chatty. This is like for general stuff, I guess. Anyway, the mentor may ask for your resume, so you officially apply to Google your proposal, which then gets to the organization. But the mentor may ask for your CV, your resume. That's normal, and they may choose you over someone else because they saw something in your resume that proves you have more experience or whatever. That's fine. They may ask about your GitHub handle, and in fact, it's usually normal for you to provide your GitHub handle when you communicate with them. After your mentor reviews the task, if there is a task, if there is like a if you went to solve a bug or just to fix an issue on their GitHub in general, they may request changes from you. So you make a pull request. They're gonna review the code, request changes, and after this, you reach a very good stage. You finish the task. The mentor communicated with the mentor. They know you. At this point, you can ask the mentor, okay, I can start working on the proposal. You have to make it early enough to give them time to give you feedback on the proposal. As I said before, the organization's website usually mentions the structure of the proposal, but Google has a basic structure, which is what we linked, which another organization linked before, but this is not common again. It's usually more sophisticated than this. Mentor will give you feedback and may request a meeting. They may request a final meeting to just be like confident that you're good. That happened to me more than once. Um, and then you submit the proposal via the official website after the mentor is satisfied. So to get an idea of when to show your mentor the proposal. So here the proposal deadline is April 2nd. You want to have your proposal done, say 2 weeks before that time. The first draft of your proposal, to be more precise, like around March 18th, you start on your proposal. So you started communicating much earlier, like maybe around here or around here. You're communicating at least around here, because maybe before this some organizations didn't have their list of ideas out, but at least from this time you started communicating. So while communicating, like 1 week after you start on the proposal, you have your draft by March 18th. This is 3 weeks actually, so that's like plenty of time to communicate and write the proposal. The first draft of the proposal, you show them. I'm speaking about the ideal case. You show them the proposal 2 weeks ahead of the final deadline. They give you feedback, you modify, and then you're done like 1 week earlier, and then you submit. Okay.